Hey everyone, it's Tobes, and welcome to your second monitor. Today is the next video in my series of Avatar: The Last Airbender Commander deck techs. The Avatar set has a huge number of legendary creatures, so I wanted to showcase some of my favorite commander options from among them. I'm releasing a new Avatar Commander deck every Thursday through mid-January when the Lorwyn set drops, in addition to my usual Monday Commander deck tech videos. So if you have a request for a specific Avatar Commander you'd like to see me build, or a way you want to see me build it, let me know in the comments below. As you see, today our commander is Sokka, Tenacious Tactician, our final member of Team Avatar. A warrior of the Southern Water Tribe, Sokka is Katara's older brother, and the oldest male left in his village at the start of the series. Despite not being a bender himself, he's the group's strategist, engineer, and planner, and when everyone else is uncertain of what to do, they often look to Sokka for leadership. He's also the comic relief of the show, but that doesn't stop him from having a significant character development and coming into his own. Sokka is a big part of my love for this show, and I'm excited to show you what I put together for him. But before we get started, let's go over my deck building template. I like to build my decks around my commander. I want to show off why it's such a cool card and why I put it at the head of my deck. So whatever it asks of me, I put 30 cards toward that. That's our game plan. It's what we do at the table and how we try to win. 30 more cards go toward supporting that game plan in the form of card advantage, acceleration, and interaction pieces. I usually run 1 or 2 sweepers, sometimes more if it would play into the game plan, sometimes not at all, but I almost always keep to my floor of 38 lands so I can make sure I can hit my land drops and I can cast my spells. So let's talk about our commander. Sokka Tenacious Tactician is a 3/3 legendary human warrior ally for 1 and Jeskai mana, a blue, a red, and a white. Sokka has menace and prowess, and gives all of our other allies menace and prowess. And whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we create a 1/1 white ally creature token. Meaning, whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we're going to get 2 triggers off of Sokka. His prowess trigger, and his make an ally token trigger. And any of our other allies will also get a prowess trigger from that. So when the show begins, Sokka is kind of full of himself. With all of the other men in his village gone, and the responsibility for safeguarding his people entrusted to him, Sokka had to develop his confidence by convincing himself that he could fight the Fire Nation on his own. This made him quick to judge and dismiss other characters and their skills, which, of course, led to him being humbled in hilarious ways. But there's a deeper insecurity behind his behavior, and even though he quickly grew out of his habitual underestimations, that insecurity never went away. It's his worry that he's not good enough to do what his father Hakoda always seemed to do, protect his people. He's the oldest of the gang, but he's the only one without bending abilities, and while his fighting skills improve, so too do Aang and Katara and Toph's more obvious dramatic powers. Even Suki is a more capable fighter than Sokka, defeating him with ease at their first meeting. We can see this throughout the series in Sokka's jokes about his feelings. He's the meat and sarcasm guy. He's just a guy with a boomerang. He's just a guy who likes comedy. He characterizes himself the same way even when he truly acknowledges his feelings, saying he's just the guy in the group who's regular. That leads to him studying under Master Piandao at the urging of his friends, but Sokka's earned humility doesn't end with his training. He admits he has a lot to learn, that he doesn't know if he's worthy. And all of this is after we've seen Sokka do amazing things. He comes up with plans to fool enemy soldiers, to build incredible machines, to coordinate unconnected groups, and stage an attack on the Fire Nation's capital. In Book 2, when the group combines their bending abilities with Zuko's for the first time in order to face down Azula, Sokka doesn't hesitate to throw his boomerang into the mix. His bravery is unquestionable, but he knows his limits, and his surety is less sturdy than it seems. These are all the reasons I like Sokka. He's not just the comic relief jerk who always gets put in his place. He's a teenage boy who learns from his mistakes, and who's able to combine that real-world education with a nimble mind that gets results. He is not the unstoppable warrior he thinks his father is. As Piandao says, Sokka's strengths are creativity, versatility, intelligence. These are the traits that define him, and they make him irreplaceable to his friends. That's the essence of our deck. Sokka is clever and knows how to use more than just his troops to his advantage. Under his leadership, everyone is evasive, and when he puts one of his innovations to work, everyone benefits from it. That said, while he accepts their help, Sokka doesn't wait for support before diving into whatever problem presents itself. Most of the equipment and enhancements he brings to the table give us ways to roll from one invention to the next, or have a connection to the group as a whole. He wants to be a great fighter, and he leads the charge, not trying to be a singular force for victory, but trusting his allies will follow him and thereby enhance his strength and their own. And when he's built up a critical mass of companions, there's no force at the table that can stop him. By the end of the series, Sokka's focus has shifted from himself to his team. He no longer has to maintain the facade of his own invulnerability, accepting his weaknesses and trusting that his friends will shore them up, just as he tries to do for them. Even so, the confidence he exudes is a consequence of trying everything, from making a dummy of the Fire Lord with a melon for the head, to drawing Suki as a firebender because it's more dramatic. He's serious about contributing, even if his contributions themselves seem unserious at first. He knows there's value in what he does, so he doesn't hold back, and he takes his lumps when he turns out to be wrong. But when he's right, his plans come together, and success is more certain, victory is more viable, people are more protected. Sokka is able to become the man he always wanted to be, and it's because of his wacky, time-wasting nonsense, not in spite of it. You'll enjoy this deck if you like seeing how Sokka's fevered preparations lead to his actual accomplishments, or if you like trusting that your strategy is the result of a master planner, and when you play it out, your strong, synergistic commander will have your back every step of the way. So as usual, this Mox Field list that we're going over today is linked in the video's description. Below it, at the bottom, you will see a considering section full of, I think, about 100 cards that I considered putting in this deck and ultimately decided not to. But if you have a bigger budget or a smaller one, if you want to go with a different focus than what I did, or you want to try to make your synergies even more broad, check that considering section when you build your own Sokka Tenacious Tactician deck. So we're going to start with a big part of our game plan, which is Voltron. We've built a lot around Sokka himself being a big deal. If we're able to play a bunch of non-creature spells that supplement Sokka's own abilities and also protect him, we're able to build out a lot more allies and trigger prowess on Sokka and our allies at the same time, and then swing in with a really big commander, but also a board that's strong enough to act on its own if our commander gets removed. So we'll start with Blacksmith's Talent. This is a class equipment, or enchantment rather, for a single red. The way these work is it comes in and it has this first ability, and it is level 1. At sorcery speed, we can pay this amount, 2 and a red, to level it up to level 2, and then it will have both abilities. And once it's level 2, we can do the same thing at sorcery speed for 3 and a red to level it up to level 3, and then it will have all 3 abilities. So it always retains the lower level abilities even once you level it up. So initially, Blacksmith's Talent says when it enters, we make a colorless equipment artifact named Sword, with equipped creature gets +1/+1 and equipped for 2. So just a sword. It's not quite as good as a short sword or any of the other iterations of a 1-mana equipment that equips for 1 and gives +1/+1, because this equips for 2, but that's fine. Comes in and it's red. Or rather, the Blacksmith Talent is red. We got it for 1 red mana. When we level it up to level 2 for 2 and a red, we get, at the beginning of combat on your turn, attach target equipment you control to up to 1 target creature you control. So we can take that sword and just have it auto-equipped to Sokka. We don't have to pay the equip cost. Maybe we've played Blacksmith's Talent, gotten our sword, we get Sokka out, and we don't have to equip him since he can't attack anyway that turn. The next turn, we level the talent up to level 2, and it'll auto-equip Sokka with the sword. Or any other equipment we want that we have in play. Finally, at level 3, for 3 and a red, we have during our turn, equipped creatures we control have double strike and haste. We have a bunch of different sources of double strike in this deck, and it's just great. You know, we can put our equipment on our friends that we've made, our little ally tokens, and we can use level 2 of Blacksmith Talent to do so. And then everything that's equipped has double strike and haste, because Sokka has trained his troops well. Next, we have Blood-Forged Battle Axe, a classic. A single generic mana for a equipment that equips for 2 and gives the equipped creature +2/+0. However, whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, we make a token that's a copy of Blood-Forged Battle Axe. So we get extra axes to pass around. Maybe we put this on Sokka, maybe we put an additional one on Sokka once we've made more of it. They'll both trigger when we do damage with them the next time, but we maybe want to pass them around to our little tokens so that they're 3 ones at least before their prowess trigger goes off. So that's pretty good. Dragonfire Blade is next, recently from Tarkir Dragonstorm. I love this card. A single generic mana for an equipment that equips for 4, but that costs 1 less for each color of the creature it targets. So if we target one of our ally tokens with this, it costs 1 less, making it equip for 3, since that token is blue, or is white rather. However, Sokka is 3 colors, so this equips for just 1. And it gives the equipped creature +2/+2, hexproof from monocolored. That means it can't be targeted by a spell or ability that an opponent controls if that spell or the source of that ability is only 1 color. So Doomblade isn't going to work on Sokka. Swords of Plowshares isn't going to work on him. Rabid Bite won't work on him. Void Rend will work on him. Mortify, something like that, since those are not monocolored. But it's a little bit of protection, and it's very cheap, a single generic to cast and 1 more to equip for +2/+2, pretty alright. Stoneforge Masterwork is next. This is one of our equipment that really benefits from all the tokens we're making. For a single generic mana, we get an equipment that equips for 2 and gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each other creature we control that shares a creature type with it. In this deck, mostly that's allies, but we do have a few non-ally humans as well, so that can be pretty nice when we put this on Sokka. Or we put it on one of our tokens, and we don't mind if it gets blocked and traded with, because we'll get to keep the Stoneforge Masterwork, and we'll make more tokens. Next is Adaptive Omni Tool. I really like this card from the Aetherdrift Commander product. For 2 generic mana, we get an equipment that equips for 3, and gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each artifact you control. We are running 30 artifacts in this deck, 21 of which are equipment. So quite a lot of bonuses there, and of course, it's possible we have some extra artifacts if we make more Bloodforged Battle Axes, or if we make some tokens like clues, which we'll see later. Also, the Omni Tool says whenever the equipped creature attacks, so this is not an on-damage effect like the Battle Axe. Look at the top 6 cards of your library, and we can reveal an artifact from among them, put it in our hand, put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So 30 of the cards in our library are artifacts. We're probably going to be able to find one if we dig 6 deep every time our commander attacks with the Omni Tool equipped. So this is just drawing us a card. Next, we have Astrologian's Planisphere. This is from the Final Fantasy product. 1 and a blue for an equipment that equips for 2, and for some reason that's called Diana. I'm not a Final Fantasy fan, so if you know in the comments why Diana is equipping this Planisphere, let me know. This also has Job Select, which means when it enters, we make a 1/1 colorless hero creature token, and we attach the Planisphere to that token. It gives the equipped creature, which initially is this hero, but we can always move this to Sokka or whomever else we want. It makes that equipped creature a wizard in addition to its other types, and it says, whenever we cast a non-creature spell and whenever we draw our 3rd card each turn, we put a 1/1 counter on the equipped creature. So this is pretty sweet. We're not usually going to be drawing 3 cards in a turn, although we do have a few ways that we might be able to. But in any case, every time we cast a non-creature spell, which we're doing a lot of in this deck, we're putting a counter on the creature, meaning we could put the Planisphere on, we could leave it on the hero, or put it on one of our ally tokens, or we could put it on Sokka, cast a spell or 2, get some counters, and then move it, and cast some more non-creature spells, and we get more counters that we can spread around, and they'll stick to that creature even once we move the Planisphere off. So this gives a little bit of pump, we just have to cast some more spells in the process. Sort of like a permanent prowess, if you want to think of it that way. Next, of course, Blackblade Reforged. Love this card. 2 generic mana for a legendary equipment that equips for 7, but equips legendary creatures for only 3, and gives +1/+1 to the creature for each land we control. So as we get more and more lands, our creature levels up. Just very powerful. Next, we have Horn of Valhalla from Baldur's Gate. This is an adventure spell, which means we can cast this as Horn of Valhalla for 1 and a white, and it's an equipment that equips for 3 and gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each creature we control. So it gets bigger and better every time we cast a non-creature spell with Sokka out, because we'll get more ally tokens. However, it also has Isgard's Call as an adventure, as a sorcery, which means while this is in our hand, we can either cast it as the Horn, or we can cast it as Isgard's Call, which is an adventure for X and double white that makes a number of 1/1 soldiers equal to X. And if we do that, we then exile the card and we can cast it as the Horn from exile later. Maybe that same turn, maybe a different turn, doesn't matter. So we can cast the sorcery and then the artifact, or we can just cast the artifact. We can't cast the sorcery once this horn is already in play. But if we do the sorcery first, we get a couple of creatures. That seems nice. We can use those to help out a little bit. And also, that sorcery is a non-creature spell, so we can trigger Sokka with that. And all of our other creatures with prowess. And then, another non-creature spell is the horn itself. Cast that, and maybe we've used up all our mana for the turn, but we've got this sitting around so that we can equip it next turn. Next up is Sigil of Valor. This is 2 generic mana for an equip for 1 equipment that says whenever a equipped creature attacks alone, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each other creature you control. So this is not something we do all that often, but we want to be flexible. Sometimes we're able to attack with just Sokka, sometimes we're able to attack with our whole board or just our tokens. But Sigil of Valor costs so little that equipping it to one of our tokens is very cheap, and it's pretty likely it's going to get a significant power boost, and toughness boost of course, once we attack with it alone. But if we do so with Sokka, that's also pretty good. It's worth remembering as well, Sokka and all of our allies have Menace. Menace is so easy to underestimate, but when you have a wide board with a bunch of creatures with Menace, a lot of the times that just means like, okay, you can block 2 of my creatures, everything else is getting in. Sigil of Valor on one of our tokens means they're likely to block a token rather than our commander who might be pumped up in other ways. Or we put it on our commander because he is pumped up in other ways, and that means we're definitely going to kill at least a couple of things when they block him. Next is the Swifties. Swiftfoot Boots is 2 generic mana for an equipment that equips for 1 and gives the equipped creature hexproof and haste. We can use this to give Sokka haste, but we're really here for the hexproof. Protecting our commander when he's such an engine for creating tokens, and he gives every one of those tokens 2 relevant abilities, he's going to be a little bit of a magnet for removal, so we want to be able to protect him. Swiftfoot Boots gives us an inexpensive way to do that, and also trigger him when we cast it. Sword of the Animist is also 2 generic mana for a legendary equipment that equips for 2 and gives +1/+1 to the equipped creature. In addition, whenever that creature attacks, so again, not a damage trigger, but an attack trigger, we get to Rampant Growth. Search our library for a basic, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. So this helps us fix our mana, it helps us ramp, hopefully repeatedly. If it falls off of our commander because our commander has been removed, we just put it on a token and keep ramping. Sounds good. Next up, we have Sword of the Squeak from Bloomborough Commander. For 2 generic mana, we get an equipment that equips for 2 and gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each creature we control with base power and toughness 1. Now, base power and toughness is a specific term that means whatever's printed on the card or printed on the token. So if a token has power and toughness 1/1 because it's one of the tokens that Sokka has created, and then we trigger prowess with it, its power and toughness are now +2/+2, but its base power and toughness remain 1/1. It's just what's printed on the card. So Sword of the Squeak is essentially giving the equipped creature +1/+1 for each of our tokens, because most of our tokens are 1/1s, and usually they're the ally tokens that Sokka's making. We have another line of text that is not really relevant in this deck, but you never know, there might be a way to use this. Generally though, this is just giving us +1/+1, or giving the equipped creature +1/+1 for each one of our tokens. So a little bit like Horn of Valhalla or Sigil of Valor, but just not on attacks only, and pretty inexpensive for what it does. Next up, we have Thran Power Suit, or Thrawn, perhaps? I've heard them pronounce this both ways. So from the Brothers' War, we have a 2 generic mana equipment that equips for 2 and gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to it, and it gives it Ward 2. So a little bit of protective ability, and it makes it rewarded for each one of these things we have attached to it. It includes itself, by the way, so this is at least +1/+1. Seems alright. Vorak Battlehorns, this is really fun. For 2 generic mana, we get an equipment that equips for 1 and gives the equipped creature trample, and can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. Can't be blocked by more than 1 creature is the opposite of Menace, which can only be blocked by more than 1 creature. which means if we put this on any of our creatures with menace, including our commander, that creature is now unblockable. They can't be blocked by more than one creature, and they have to be blocked by more than one creature if they're going to be blocked at all, so they can't be blocked. So once this hits the battlefield, for 1 generic mana, any one of our allies, including our commander, is unblockable. That seems pretty good. Celestial Armor is next, another piece of evasion for us. 2 and a white for an equipment that equips for 3 and a white, but it has flash, and when it enters, we attach it to a creature we control, and that creature will get hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So a great way for us to protect our commander, at the very least, but also it gives the equipped creature +2/+0 and flying. So we can flash this in, protect our commander from a board wipe or a removal spell, and now he's a 5/3 flying prowess menace with all of his other abilities. And if we need to move this around, we sure can for 3 and a white, or maybe we have something like Blacksmith's Talent to make that equip cost much less. We're also running Champion's Helm, 3 generic mana for an equipment that equips for only 1, it gives +2/+2, and makes the creature hexproof as long as it's legendary. So we put this on our commander, that's the plan, and it's a better Swiftfoot Boots. It costs 1 more than Swiftfoot Boots, but equips for the same amount. Doesn't give haste, but it does give hexproof, and it gives +2/+2. So maybe better is, only on a few axes, but it's still very good. Next up, we have Dalakos, Crafter of Wonders. This is a card that I've been excited about since it came out in Theros Beyond Death. And I know people use this card, but I have found so few ways to make it work for me. I'm so excited to put it in this deck. So Dalakos is a 2/4 legendary Merfolk Artificer for 1, a blue and a red, that we can tap for 2 generic mana, or 2 colorless mana rather. So it's a Soul Ring, except we can only use this mana on artifact spells or abilities of artifacts. Artifact spells, again, we've got 30 artifacts in the deck, and abilities of artifacts, that includes equip costs. So we can use Dalakos to help equip our equipment to our commander or whomever else. And Dalakos gives all of our equipped creatures flying and haste. So even more flying so we can evade our opponents. Seems very good. Another protective piece is Darksteel Plate. 3 generic mana for an equipment that equips for 2. It is indestructible, and so is the equipped creature. That's pretty good. This used to be a lot more expensive, but we can get it for $5 now. And it goes in basically any one of your Voltron decks and a lot of other decks you might want to put it in for creatures you care about. So that's the kind of, rule of thumb I use. If it's more than a few dollars, am I going to use it in multiple decks? Darksteel Plate, you probably are. Next is Duelist's Heritage. This is an enchantment, but not an aura, for 2 and a white. And it says, whenever 1 or more creatures attack, you may have target attacking creature gain double strike until end of turn. And pictured here are Piandao and Sokka. So Duelist's Heritage is great because it's one of our sources of double strike. It's whenever 1 or more creatures attack, we can give an attacking creature double strike. So we can't use it when we're blocking, but we can sure use it if we're attacking with our Menace Prowess commander. However, it's also a good political piece, because it doesn't say whenever 1 or more creatures you control attack. So if an opponent is about to attack, we can say, look, you can attack me, but if you attack a different opponent, if you go after opponent B instead of me, I'll make one of your creatures double striking. And we can do that whenever we want. We can say, just leave me alone, or, hey, I see you're attacking, I have a trigger at the start of your, during your declare attacker step, I can give one of your attacking creatures double strike since you're already attacking someone else. But what will you do for me? Will you leave me alone for a turn cycle? That kind of thing. Will you not target me with removal? Leave my commander out there, whatever it may be. So you can use Duelist Heritage in a political way. It's one of those things where opponents don't really lose anything if they say no, because they were already going to attack. But if they say yes, they get a little benefit out of it. They just make a little deal with you, and that makes commander games more fun. Next, we have Glider Staff. This is 2 and a white for an equipment that equips for 2 and gives the equipped creature +1/+1 and flying. However, it also says when it enters, we airbend up to 1 target creature, meaning we exile that creature, and while it's exiled, its owner can cast it for 2 generic mana rather than its mana cost. So this is a great way to put +1/+1 and flying on Sokka, to trigger Prowess on Sokka and all of our other allies, and to get one of our opponent's creatures out of the way. Pretty sweet. It's also possible that, I don't know, the timing is off, is not great on this, but there may be a way for us to protect our commander with this by saying, I'm going to use Glider Staff to airbend Sokka and then pass the turn, and your Saga that was going to destroy all creatures next turn goes off and it doesn't kill Sokka since he's been airbent. We just have to pay the 2 generic to recast him. You know, it's a possibility. It's not usually going to happen in this deck. We want to really probably more use it as removal and evasion and a way to pump our creatures. But yeah, it's a possibility. Next up, from Zendikar Rising, initially, it's Mull of the Skyclaves. 2 and a white for an equipment that equips for 2 and double white, so kind of expensive. But when it enters, we attach it to a creature we control, so it's a snap-on equipment. And it gives +2/+2, flying and first strike. Pretty great for our commander, for him to have flying, first strike, menace, and prowess. And again, expensive to re-equip, but we can pay it in this deck, and we have a couple of ways to cheat on equip costs as well. So next up we have Nettlecyst. Nettlecyst is great from Modern Horizons 2, I think. 3 generic mana for an equipment that equips for 2, and gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment we control. So this gives bonuses not just for artifacts, but for enchantments as well. And it has Living Weapon, which means when it enters, we make a 0/0 black Phyrexian Germ creature token and then attach Nettlecyst to it. Nettlecyst will be giving that 0/0 germ at least +1/+1 because it itself is an artifact. So very similar to the Planisphere that we already saw, how it has Job Select. Job Select is sort of the 3rd iteration of what we have for Living Weapon cards. So yeah, just comes in and auto-equips itself to the token it makes. And that does mean that if we re-equip Nettlecyst to Sokka or whatever other creature we want, then the germ will die. That's okay. We didn't need that germ anyway. Team Avatar is next. This is 2 and a white for an enchantment that is a power-crept version of, I wish I could remember the name of it, a 3 and a white enchantment from Guilds of Ravnica or Ravnica Allegiance, Ravnica 3, somewhere in there. And it has this text. Whenever a creature we control attacks alone, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. It's the same thing as our Sigil of Valor, except it doesn't require it to be equipped to a creature. It just gives it to whatever creature we're attacking alone with. That's pretty good. In addition, however, we can pay the same cost, 2 and a white, and discard it while it's in our hand to have it deal damage equal to the number of creatures we control to target creature. So we can use this as a removal spell or use it as a big pump. Pretty nice either way. Bioorganic Carapace from the Spider-Man set is next. 2, a white and a blue for an equipment that equips for 2, but it does snap on. It attaches to one of our creatures when it enters. It gives that equipped creature +2/+2, and the text, whenever the creature deals combat damage to a player, we draw a card for each modified creature we control. That is to say, any creatures we have that have equipment equipped to them, auras that we control attached to them, or counters on them of any sort. So we get to draw at least 1 card, since this equipped creature is, equipped when it does combat damage to a player. So yeah, Bioorganic Carapace at least is +2/+2, and this creature has Curiosity, but it might be drawing us even more cards if we spread out our equipment. So yeah. Finally in this section, we have Brunor Battlehammer from the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms set. 2 a red and a white for a 5/3 legendary dwarf warrior that says each creature we control gets +2/+0 for each equipment attached to it. So this rewards us for putting equipment on our creatures, and rewards us even more for putting more equipment on one creature. So yeah, we get to pass that around. In addition, Brunor lets us pay 0 generic mana, rather than the equip cost for the first equip ability we activate each turn. So if we want to get our Maul of the Skyclaves onto something for nothing, we can do that as long as we don't do any other we don't activate any other equip abilities that turn first. So that is our Voltron section. We have other ways, however, of pumping up our commander and all of our creatures in the form of Anthems. As you can see, we have 8 Anthems, and we had 23 cards that I tagged as Voltron, so we've got a little bit more than 30 cards that are pumping up our team in different ways. We're going to start with Aang, Swift Savior. Aang is 1 a white and a blue for a 2/3 legendary human avatar ally. Obviously, he's the avatar. And it has flash and flying. And it says when Aang enters, airbend up to 1 other target creature or spell. So this is another way for us to airbend things, and it's a way that, unlike the glider staff, we actually can protect Sokka with it. Because we can hit a creature or a spell, is to say a spell on the stack. Our opponent is going to see that spell airbent, therefore exiled. They could recast it right away if they want, but if we do this correctly, we can sort of use this as a quench. Like that spell will go into exile, and if they don't have 2 mana to spend to recast it that same turn, then they're going to have to just wait until next turn, and it becomes more of a memory lapse, or a remand, I guess. So Aang being able to flash in, and we get a 2/3 flying blocker, or we get a 2/3 flyer that we can use for other things, and we just airbend something. That seems pretty good. Get rid of a creature, get rid of a spell that's threatening us, any of those things. Aang also has the ability that we can transform him if we waterbend 8. And we'll talk about his transform side in a moment, but waterbending is very relevant in this deck because we have so many equipment. Waterbend means pay 8 generic mana, but you can also tap creatures and or tap artifacts to pay for that waterbending cost. Well, equipment, even though most of the time when people are attacking in Commander and they have an equipped creature, they'll just tap the creature and the equipment at the same time to attack with it. Technically, they're only supposed to tap their creature. The equipment doesn't tap just because the creature it's attached to taps. Which means we have a lot of equipment in this deck that are just sitting there doing the thing they do without having a tap ability of their own. So we can tap them to pay for waterbend costs. In addition, we're making a lot of tokens with our commander, so we can tap them to pay for waterbending costs. The point is, it's very likely that in this deck, at least once we've had a few turns of it, Aang Swift Savior can be transformed without us paying a single mana. We just tap a bunch of our artifacts and or our tokens, and he flips into Aang and La, Ocean's Fury. This is a 5/5 Avatar Spirit ally, obviously legendary. It has reach and trample, and whenever it attacks, we put a 1/1 counter on each tapped creature we control. So this isn't a traditional Anthem that just gives a bonus to everything, all the time, but it does put counters on all of our creatures that are tapped, and so if we attack with Aang and La, we're probably attacking with everything, meaning everything is going to get a counter on it, including our commander, and Aang and La has reach and trample, but it's also an ally, so Sokka is going to be giving it menace and prowess as well. So that protects Aang and La from being probably killed right away, at least with blocking, and means it's going to be a 6/6 because it's going to put a counter on itself because it is one of our tapped creatures when we're attacking with it. So yeah. Next is Frostcliff Siege. 1 a blue and a red for an enchantment that says when it enters we choose Jeskai or Temur. And honestly, I can see you going either way with this. It's in the Anthem section because of Temur, because we can give all of our creatures +1/+0 and trample and haste, and that's just as long as this is in play. Or if we feel like our creatures are big enough and we're not worried about making them bigger and giving them a little bit of evasion in the form of trample, we can choose Jeskai. And it says whenever one or more creatures we control deal combat damage to a player, we draw a card. It's not Mass Curiosity or like Coastal Piracy or Reconnaissance Mission, something like that, because it's not us drawing a card per creature that does combat damage. But if we do attack multiple players, each player we do combat damage to will cause this to trigger and we'll draw a card. So we can get multiple draws off of this per turn, and at the very least it's an extra draw every time we attack and do combat damage. So generally this is going to be used, I think, as an Anthem and Evasion for our team. But the Jeskai ability is pretty good too. Next up, we have Renewed Solidarity from the Aetherdrift Commander product again. 2 and a white for an enchantment that says, as this enchantment enters, choose a creature type. We will choose allies. Creatures we control with the chosen type get +1/+0. So that's our commander, that's all of our tokens, that's Aang, Swift Savior, yeah. And at the beginning of our end step, for each token we control of the chosen type that entered this turn, create a token that's a copy of it. So each of our ally tokens that we made usually using our commander, at the very least, we're going to get an extra one of. That seems pretty good. Next is War Leader's Call. I really like this card. 1 a red and a white for an enchantment that gives equipped creatures we control +1/+1, and whenever a creature we control enters, War Leader's Call deals 1 damage to each opponent. So this is Impact Tremors and Glorious Anthem combined. Great. This includes those tokens that are coming in from our commander. So yeah, every time we cast a non-creature spell, once War Leader's Call and Sokka are both on the battlefield, those tokens that Sokka makes are going to come in as 2/2s, and they're going to do 1 damage to each opponent. Seems good. Next is Cathar's Crusade. There are a lot of different variations of this effect. I still think this is one of the best ones, even though it is annoying at the table when you have to deal with so many different dice on all of your creatures. But there's a lot of better ways, a lot of other ways that we're getting sort of counter-based Anthem effects, so Cathar's Crusade is right at home in this one. For 3 and double white, it's an enchantment that says whenever a creature we control enters, put a 1/1 counter on each creature we control. That includes the creature that just entered. So if this is in play, and so is Sokka, if we cast a non-creature spell, we're going to get a prowess trigger on all our creatures. We're going to get a Sokka trigger to make a creature, and that creature is going to come in and trigger Cathar's Crusade and put a counter on that token, all of our other creatures, and Sokka. So this means that Sokka's prowess trigger is almost doubled in a way, because if Sokka's in play and we cast a non-creature spell with Cathar's Crusade also in play, all of our creatures are going to, or at least Sokka and all of our other allies, are going to get +2/+2, because they're going to get their own prowess trigger and they're going to get a counter, and that counter will stick around. Seems good. Next up, we have Katara, Water Tribe's Hope, our other big waterbending card. Katara is 2 a white and double blue for a 3/3 legendary human warrior ally. Katara has vigilance, and when she enters, she makes one of the same ally tokens that Sokka does. And Katara has an ability to give all of our creatures base power and toughness XX until end of turn, where X is equal to how much we waterbend. X just can't be 0. So another way for us to tap a whole bunch of artifacts and tokens, waterbend really hard, and now we've got base power and toughness, I don't know, 10/10, or whatever we've chosen. That does turn off Sword of the Squeak, obviously, because it changes the base power and toughness of everything. But that's okay. Being able to use this as a sneaky, giant pump effect. Maybe we do this post attacks, because Katara doesn't require, the ability doesn't require us to tap Katara. So we do a big attack with all of our stuff. We get all of our prowess triggers, because Katara, of course, is an ally as well. Everything we're attacking with because of Sokka has menace in addition to that prowess. And then, after blocks, we waterbend X by tapping all of our artifacts that we have, whether they're equipment or mana rocks or whatever, and then any creatures that we may have that aren't attacking, we just tap all of that. Now everything's got a huge power and toughness, in addition to the bonuses that they've gotten from counters, from prowess, whatever else. So yeah, Katara is very powerful for us to use her with. And just to add to all that, Katara has vigilance, so we can tap her for waterbending even if we're attacking with her. Next up, we have Kazul Warlord. This is 4 and a red for a 3/3 Minotaur Warrior ally, so Sokka helps him out, or them out. That says whenever this creature or another ally we control enters, we can put a 1/1 counter on each ally creature we control. So this is almost the same as Cathar's Crusade. It just only counts allies. We have only a few creatures in this deck that aren't allies, but we do have a few. But anytime we cast a non-creature spell, Sokka is going to make a token, because Warlord's going to trigger. We're going to get a counter on all of our allies, including that token. Seems pretty good. Finally, we have Appa the Vigilant. 5 and double white for a 6/6 legendary Bison ally. Appa's also our ally. Appa has flying and vigilance, and thanks to Sokka, prowess and menace. And whenever Appa or another ally we control enters, creatures we control get +1/+1 and gain flying and vigilance until end of turn. So pretty nice. The vigilance is a great way to help us with waterbending. Flying, of course, is good evasion. This +1/+1 is not counters. It just sticks around the same way that prowess does. But it's worth recognizing that that happens whenever allies come in. So if we cast a non-creature spell, Sokka is going to trigger prowess on all of our allies and make an ally, which will trigger Appa, which is going to give +1/+1 to all of our allies, or all of our creatures rather. So it's like part 2, or the sequel of that same prowess trigger. Pretty nice. As you can see, these Anthem effects could definitely get out of hand, and that's why our deck is so strong when we go wide or tall, or both. So that is most of our game plan. We're going to talk about the supplemental cards that help out that game plan, but first we want to talk about these support sections, starting with card advantage. So as usual, I've tagged this as draw, just as a shorthand. That doesn't mean necessarily that all these cards actually do the draw mechanic. They just get us access to other cards. So Skull Clamp is the first one. For a single generic mana, we get an equipment that I didn't list as a Voltron card, and you'll see why in a moment. But I guess you could put it on Sokka just to give him +1/+1. Anyway, it equips for 1, and it gives +1/-1, which, yeah, Sokka could be a 4/2 instead of a 3/3. That's fine. But it says whenever equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. So that is the reason this is in this deck. What we want to do is cast Skull Clamp for 1, trigger Sokka, make a 1/1 ally, pay 1 more, equip this to that ally, it becomes a 2/0 and dies, and immediately draws us 2 cards. So once this is in play, this generally means pay 1 and draw 2 if you sacrifice an ally token every turn, or every time we want to do that. It's so much card advantage. It's 100% worth the $5 we're paying for it, especially since we're going to use this in other decks. Being able to make so many tokens and turn them into 2 cards for 1 mana over and over, that's pretty good. We've seen the Omni tool. It does not draw us a card, but it does let us look 6 deep when the equipped creature attacks and find an artifact and put it in our hand. Idol of Oblivion is next. This is 2 generic mana for an artifact that lets us tap it to just draw a card, just straight up pure card draw, but only if we've created a token this turn. So all we have to do is cast any non-creature spell, Sokka will trigger, we've made a token, tap Idol of Oblivion, now we have a card in hand. So we've replaced the card that we cast to trigger Sokka. We also have the ability, if we want, although this is not as good, but you never know, to pay 8 and tap and sack the Idol of Oblivion to make a 10/10 Eldrazi creature token. Not really what we want for this. We want to be able to get this repeated card draw, but in case we need a 10/10, sometimes you need a 10/10. What can I say? Pure Steel Paladin is next. 2 white mana for a 2/2 human knight, so worth recognizing. This is not an ally, but it is human, so it does share a type with Sokka, if that's relevant. And the Paladin says whenever an equipment we control enters, we may draw a card. So just all of our equipment, when we're casting it, replaces itself. And Metalcraft. If we have 3 or more artifacts, all of our equipment have the ability to equip for 0. So this is another way for us to cheat at equip costs and move all our equipment around easily. South Pole Voyager is next. 1 and a white for a 2/2 human scout ally that says whenever this creature or another ally we control enters, we gain a life, and if it's the second time this is resolved this turn, we draw a card. So this is not guaranteed draw every turn, but it is repeatable draw, and it's likely to happen most turns. All we have to do with Sokka in play is cast 2 non-creature spells, and we get 2 little ally tokens. The first one will gain us a life, the second one will gain us a life and draw us a card. And if we have some more, each additional one will only gain us life. Remember, this card draw ability only triggers the second time it's resolved, not every other time, not like every even-numbered time. But yeah, we can get extra allies, gain a little life, draw some cards. Waterbender Ascension is next, another waterbending card. For 1 and a blue, we have an enchantment that says whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, put a quest counter on this enchantment. Quest counters don't have an inherent mechanical meaning, they're just used by this card. And then, same trigger, if Waterbender Ascension has 4 or more quest counters on it, we draw a card. So that means after we have 3 counters on this, each subsequent time that any creature deals combat damage to a player, Waterbender Ascension will get a counter and we'll draw a card. So we have to level it up a little bit by doing some combat damage with our creatures. But once we've done that, it's essentially Coastal Piracy or a reconnaissance mission. it's curiosity for all of our creatures. Each time we do combat damage to players with each creature, we're drawing a card for them. But on top of that, if we waterbend 4, we can make one of our creatures unblockable this turn. So we tap 4 of our artifacts or tokens or something, Sokka's unblockable, we swing in, and when he does that combat damage, we get his quest counter, and if we then have 4 or more, we'll also draw a card off of it. So a great way to have repeatable evasion and ways for us to use our equipment by tapping them without changing any of their efficacy. Next up, we have Forensic Gadgeteer from Murders at Karlov Manor. For 2 and a blue, we get a 2/3 Vidalcan Artificer Detective. So this is one of our cards that just doesn't share any creature types with Sokka, and that's okay. The Gadgeteer says whenever we cast an artifact spell, we investigate, which means we make a clue token. Clues are artifacts that we can pay 2 and sacrifice to draw a card. We don't even have to tap them. So these are great for us to use to waterbend. We tap them to waterbend, and it doesn't change our ability to crack them for a card draw. It does help us get card advantage that way, and we've got, like I've said, a lot of artifact spells that we can use to get these clues, and therefore double up on our ability to waterbend or just draw more cards. In addition, the Gadgeteer says activated abilities of artifacts we control cost 1 less, but to a minimum of 1. That means all these clues only cost 1 for us to crack. It also means all of our equipment that equips for any amount of generic mana have their generic mana costs for those equipment reduced by 1, at least if it wasn't already 1, because again, it can only reduce it to 1 mana, not 0. Still pretty great. Frostcliff Siege, we've already seen it, lets us have, the Jeskai mode, lets us draw cards when we damage a player, or draw a card at least, for each player we damage. Next we have Lauren of the Third Path. Lauren is an artificer, but she's a human, and she's legendary. She's a 2/1, and she costs 2 and a white. Lauren has vigilance, and whenever she enters, we destroy up to 1 target artifact or an enchantment. So she comes with a free disenchant. And then, on subsequent turns, once she no longer has summoning sickness, we can tap her, and we and a different opponent each draw a card. So repeatable card draw, but we are giving it to an opponent as well. That's okay, we can use this politically. We can say, hey, if I let you draw a card, will you leave me alone for a turn? Will you not attack me? Will you leave Sokka? And they're like, well, you can't draw a card unless you do it anyway, so you don't have to choose me. I'm like, okay, then other opponents, do you have a better deal you can make for me? So yeah, Lauren giving us repeated draw and a little bit of goodwill at the table, plus some removal, not bad. We've seen Bioorganic Carapace, which gives the equipped creature like a really nice version of Curiosity, because it'll draw a card for itself, but also for each modified creature we control when it gets that Saboteur trigger. And finally in this, we have Whirlwind of Thought, one of the cards that I really like in this deck as a sort of nod to the flavor of Sokka. For 1 and Jeskai mana, so the same cost as our commander, we get an enchantment that says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card. So most of our spells in this deck are non-creature spells. We have 15 creatures plus our commander, so every one of our other spells is not a creature spell. So we're going to be able to get more and more and more triggers from Whirlwind of Thought, and each of those spells that we cast is going to replace itself. Pretty good. Lots of repeatable card advantage in this deck. So pretty nice for us. Let's talk now about Acceleration, which again I've just shorthanded as Ramp. Of course, we're running Soul Ring. It costs 1, it's an artifact that taps for 2 colorless, it's extremely powerful, put it in your deck. Wayfarer's Bauble is next. For 1 generic mana, we get an artifact that if we pay 2 tap and sack it, we get 2 Rampant Growth. Search for a basic, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. This is great because it gives us some land-based fixing in our 3-color non-green deck, but also Wayfarer's Bauble can just sit on the battlefield for us, and we can crack it whenever we happen to have extra mana, or we can use it to waterbend with. That's a good possibility. It also adds to things like, Nettle Cyst calculations. Next is Arcane Signet. It is a 2-mana rock, meaning it taps for mana. This one can tap for mana of any color in our commander's color identity. So in this deck, it taps for white, red, or blue. It's untapped. It's very strong. Yeah, we want that. Felwar Stone is sort of the opposite of it. For 2 generic mana, it's an untapped rock that taps for 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. So at the very least, this is a 2 mana untapped rock that accelerates us and taps for black or green, which we can use for any of our generic mana costs, many of which we have in our spell casting costs, but we can also use that for our equip costs, paying into things like waterbending. It's going to help us no matter what. And if it ends up being that one of our opponents has a mountain, or has a plains and a plains and a mountain, or maybe they have like a hallowed fountain, which is a plains and an island. Now Felwar Stone is getting more and more like our own mana base. So I usually run this in any of my decks that is at least 3 colors. It's fine to run in a 2-color deck as well, but I save it for 3-color decks. It's very strong in this. Sword of the Animist, we've already seen. It lets the equipped creature attack and gives us a free rampant growth. Next we have our 3 talismans. We'll look at the Talisman of Conviction. This is 2 generic mana for an artifact that comes in untapped, taps for colorless, or we can tap it for red or white if we're willing to let it do a damage to us. And we for sure are, because most of the time we're tapping this just for colorless mana, because our mana base is constructed well. But if we need it for colored mana, we're spending 1 life essentially to fix our mana exactly as we need in that moment, and that's worth it. Even if we do that 4, 6, 8 times over the course of the game, it means our mana was exactly what we wanted, or we wouldn't have tapped it for that. So the talismans are very strong, which is why we're running 1 for each color combination. Conviction is Boros, Creativity is Izzet, and Progress, of course, is Azorius. We've seen Dalakhos. Dalakhos gives us mana, and it's not exactly ramp, but it does let us ramp out artifacts and activate our abilities of our artifacts. That's pretty nice. Longshot Rebel Bowman is a new card, 3 and a red for a 3/3 legendary human rebel ally, so he's an ally, with reach, and he gives our non-creature spells a reduction of 1 generic mana for casting. This is not limited the way that those activated abilities of artifacts are limited to a minimum of 1 by the Vidalcan Artificer that we saw earlier, the Forensic Agiteer. So Longshot can make our Soul Ring or our Dragonfire Blade free to cast. And he reduces, like I mentioned, we have 16 total spells in the deck that are creatures, including Longshot himself. So every one of our other spells is getting reduced by 1. So it's pretty likely we're going to be able to double spell with it. And when you're doing cost reductions like this, you want to be able to use them to double spell, or it's not any different than just having a rock in play. In addition though, Longshot is a 3/3 reach that says whenever we cast a non-creature spell, Longshot deals 2 damage to each opponent. So it's sort of, he's a gutter snipe as well. We're able to get 2 damage to every opponent every time we cast a non-creature. If we have War Leader's Call in play, we're also triggering our commander and putting a token into play and doing 1 damage from the impact triggers, or impact tremors trigger on War Leader's Call, etc. So Longshot is something that will annoy our opponents and give us a little bit of mana advantage in the process, which means that annoyance might turn into him eating a removal spell rather than Sokka. It's a good possibility. Finally, we're running White Lotus Tile, because it's just strong in this deck. Any of our allies' Typal decks like this. For 4 generic mana, we get an artifact that enters tapped, but it taps for X mana of any one color, where X is the greatest number of creatures we control that have a creature type in common. With all the ally tokens that we're making with our commander, we're going to be able to tap this for quite a lot of mana, and probably it's going to end up making more mana than it cost, the turn after it comes in. So we're mana positive on it over the course of multiple turns. It seems very good. So that is our ramp section, or acceleration. Let's talk now about interaction. Again, I've just shorthanded that as removal. So we're running Dispatch. Dispatch is a single white for an instant that taps a creature. But if we control 3 or more artifacts, that is to say we have Metalcraft, instead it exiles that creature. So this is just unconditional removal once we meet the condition. So it's conditional, but it's evasion, if you want to think of it that way. That's how I think about tapping spells. They're not really removal so much. They give us a way to get past creatures. And it's nice that we could use this to tap something down to help us out or help an opponent out if we want to do this politically. But otherwise, once we've got 3 or more artifacts, which again, we were running 30 artifacts, plus we have ways to make clues, then this can be just straight up removal from the game. We're a red deck, so we want to run Lightning Bolt. It's a single red for an instant that does 3 damage to any target. It's so efficient, it's so powerful. What could be better than Lightning Bolt? We love Lightning Bolt. Oh, what could be better? Well, Path to Exile and Source of Plowshares are both better. But they're in white, so, you know, a little different. So both of these spells are very similar. They're both a single white, they're both an instant, and they both exile a target creature. They also both give a kickback to that creature's controller. Source to Plowshares lets that creature's controller gain life equal to the creature's power, and Path to Exile lets that creature's controller rampant growth. So both of these are very strong. They're both, again, unconditional removal. And we want to run them both if we can. So we are. Angswift Savior, we've already seen. He can come in and airbend another creature or a spell. It's not permanent removal, but it's more permanent than Dispatches tapping something down. So we consider that removal. Emergency Eject is in here as my answer to Generous Gift or that sort of thing. I prefer this. I prefer these kinds of spells, 2 and a white for an instant, to not be able to hit lands, but otherwise it destroys any other permanent, because I don't want to... I just know that some playgroups don't like land-based removal, or land removal, in their main board, or I guess in their spells. Anyway, a lot of people frown on having their lands removed, and that's unfortunate. So Emergency Eject is my answer, because Stroke of Midnight is the same thing, but it leaves behind a 1/1 creature rather than a 3/3 like Generous Gift does. But I'd rather not give them a creature they can block with. I'd rather give them a Lander token, which is it's a Wayfarer's Bauble. It's an artifact token with pay 2, tap, sack, and rampant growth. So Emergency Eject, 2 and a white for an instant, destroy an on-land permanent. Its controller makes a Lander. This is very flexible removal. It forces them to pay for their rampant growth rather than like Path to Exile. They just get it. So this is, you know, I'm singing the praises of Emergency Eject, and I have since EOE came out. So yeah. We've seen Glider Staff, and how it, just like Aang, airbends a creature when it comes in. Lauren comes in and disenchants an artifact or an enchantment. Team Avatar can be channeled, you know, 2 and a white to discard it, and we do damage to a creature based on the number of creatures we have. Next we have Tuk Tuk Scrapper. 3 and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Artificer ally. It's an ally. And it has a rally trigger. Whenever this creature or another ally we control enters, we can destroy an artifact, and if that artifact dies, if it goes to the graveyard, then the Scrapper deals damage to that artifact's controller equal to the number of allies we control. So this is direct damage and a shatter effect every time it or another ally enters. So we're getting a lot of destroying people's soul rings, blowing up their Panharmonicons, maybe not their Spine of Ishsaw. We don't want that to go back to their hand. But yeah, just lots of different ways to get rid of artifacts, and it can be really nice for us. And since it's so annoying, again, it might eat a removal spell that could have otherwise gone to something more dangerous or more necessary to our game plan, like our commander. Last, we have Murasa Pyromancer. 4 and double red for a 3/2. That's a lot of mana for a 3/2. But it's a human shaman ally that says whenever this creature or another ally we control enters, we may have the Pyromancer deal damage to target creature equal to the number of allies we control. So this is sort of like that Scrapper, but removing creatures. If we have enough allies, we can just kill over and over and over and over all these creatures that our opponents have. So again, this is going to be a good removal magnet, but until then, it's going to kill off whatever creatures we need it to as we continue to cast non-creature spells and therefore make ally tokens from our commander that will trigger the Pyromancer, and it will just get stronger every time we make an ally token. So that is our interaction section. We are running 1 Wrath, which is Settle the Wreckage, one of my favorite sweepers. This is 2 and double white for an instant. It says exile all attacking creatures target player controls, and that player rampant growths for each one of those creatures. They get to go search for a basic, put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. They do that for as many creatures as they had exiled. So this doesn't sweep the entire board. It only stops 1 player, but that's okay. We're going wide. We don't really want to kill off every creature in play, and we don't have a lot of ways to kill off every creature in play that are just our opponents. But Settle the Wreckage stops us from dying to someone who's swinging in with a big board, or gives us the ability to maybe clear off their board so we can swing in on them. Maybe we've swung in on someone else on the prior turn, and a different opponent says, well, you're open, so we're going to attack you, and they attack with 4, 5, 6 more creatures. Settle the Wreckage means that they don't get to have those creatures anymore, and they get a bunch of lands instead if they have enough basics left. Holding up 2 and double white is something that I feel like people should have learned is still a threat, even though it's not in standard anymore. And I love Settle, so that's what we're running in this deck. If you want more of a traditional sweeper, you could run Day of Judgment for the same cost, and it's a sorcery that just destroys all creatures, blah, 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 blah. I think that the interesting sweepers are the more fun ones. Sometimes I'll run a sort of generic one, like a Supreme Verdict or whatever, which would also be fine in this deck. But yeah, I think this is more interesting. Oh, and it's an instant. I mean, I guess any sorcery would, but I guess it's worth recognizing, since this is an instant that doesn't kill all of our stuff, it does also trigger our commander. So everything gets prowess, everything gets, or we get another ally token to play, which maybe triggers our Marasa Pyromancer, or our Tuk Tuk Scrapper, or anything else. So yeah. So that covers our support section. We're going to talk now about the supplemental categories we have, starting with our payoffs. These are cards that reward us for doing the things we were already going to do. So Adaptive Omni Tool wants us to equip it and attack with it, and so it gives us an artifact. It helps us find more artifacts. Astral Legends Planisphere puts counters on our creatures, or on the equipped creature, whenever we cast a non-creature spell. We're doing that a lot anyway. Pure Steel Paladin gives us a way to draw cards when we cast our equipment. That's what we want. Sword of the Squeak rewards us by having a big bonus based on all of our base power and toughness 1/1 creatures. So we're going to be able to get advantage of all of our tokens. But it is worth recognizing, it doesn't say just base power and toughness 1/1, it's base power or toughness 1. So things like Lauren of the Third Path, which is a 2/1 creature, will count toward this. Worth thinking about. Thran Power Suit gives us a bonus based on all of our auras and equipment, as does Nettle Cyst, all of our artifacts and enchantments. Forensic Gadgeteer gives us a clue every time we cast an artifact spell. It's a good payoff. Sokka and Suki. This is from the Tea Time of the Jasmine Dragon scene box, and it's great. For a blue, a red, and a white, so Jeskai mana, we get a 3/3 legendary human warrior ally that says whenever it or another ally we control enters, we attach up to 1 target equipment we control to that creature. So this is an interesting sort of snap-on ability, because if we cast an equipment spell, and then Sokka, our commander, triggers, and then we get an ally token, and it will trigger this card, Sokka and Suki, and we'll get to take one of our equipment and put it on that ally token if we want to. So it's pretty nice. It just doesn't let us continually equip those equipments to our commander just the time when our commander first comes in. But we can put something on Sokka and Suki if we want to. So yeah, this is a kind of an interesting effect for this deck that lets us spread our equipment around if we want to. However, it also says whenever an equipment we control enters, we make a 1/1 white ally creature token. So this is another repeatable way for us to make those tokens, but it's based on equipment entering, not on non-creature spells being cast like our commander says. And this second ability, making that 1/1 token, will trigger the first one. So we get an equipment, it enters, we make a token, that token enters, we can attach the equipment to it if we want to. So this is a great way for us to double up on our token generation and even move our equipment around if we feel like it. I will mention though, if you're a new player and you haven't played Magic for long enough to see this yet, Sokka and Suki is the name of this card. Our commander is Sokka, Tenacious Tactician. If we ever were to have an effect that says, when Sokka does something, that effect is only referring to that card's name. So Sokka and Suki luckily makes it simple on us here, because it says when Sokka and Suki or another ally enters, we control enters. But that does not mean that this ability will be triggered by anything that isn't Sokka and Suki or another ally. I guess there's no allies that aren't Sokka. So maybe this little explanation is not relevant. But the long and short of it is, when a card refers to itself by name, it only means this card. It doesn't mean any other cards that happen to share a name with it. Like there's multiple other Sokkas in the game. This only refers to itself, even though it also refers to other allies, and every other Sokka is an ally. So, hope that helps. All right, War Leader's Call, as we've seen already, gives us a benefit when we have creatures enter, and we're getting a lot of that with our token generation. Longshot gives us that same kind of benefit, but twice as much when we cast non-creature spells, which is what we're doing anyway. But we have one other card that cares about our non-creature spells, and it is Shark Typhoon. For 5 and a blue, we get an enchantment that says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, make an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X is that spell's mana value. So we're getting a free flying token every time we cast a non-creature spell, and those tokens are power and toughness equal to the mana value of the spell that we cast that triggered it. So this is pretty fun. Like, Shark Typhoon can definitely take over games. It doesn't give us the ally synergies that we might want, so there are other cards we could put in, but if we are going for a trigger that looks like this, Shark Typhoon is really fun, and it gives us the ability to swing it in the air, even if we don't have something like Appa giving our whole team flying, and also block in the air if we don't have something like that. So Shark Typhoon is very powerful in that way, and if this is all it said, it wouldn't be a fire design card. So Shark Typhoon says cycling for X1 and a blue, which means if we pay X1 and a blue and discard it from our hand, we can draw a card. We can have XP 0. So if we pay 1 and a blue and discard it, we can just draw a card. If maybe Shark Typhoon is not what we need, if we're desperate for land or something. But it also says if we cycle this, we make an XX blue shark creature token with flying. So if we want to pump some mana into X, we won't just cycle it and draw that card, we'll also make an XX flying shark. So a good way for us to get a surprise flying blocker if we need to, because we can always cycle this at instant speed on an opponent's turn when they've attacked us. That's a possibility too. Of course, I prefer, if we can get this out for 6 mana, that we do so, because we get a reward for every other non-creature spell we cast after that. So those are our payoffs, things that are giving us a benefit for what we were already doing. We also have a synergy section, which is more focused on helping us get our things equipped when we need to. So we've seen all of these. Blacksmith's Talent, second level ability, lets us snap an equipment on at the start of combat on our turn once it's leveled up to that. Pure Steel Paladin gives all of our equipment the ability to equip for 0 as long as we have 3 or more artifacts. Forensic Gadgeteer helps us make those artifacts by letting us investigate when we cast artifact spells, but also reduces the activated ability cost of our artifacts abilities, artifact activated abilities, by 1. So yeah, can help us equip things a little better, but also crack clues and do things like that. Sokka and Suki, we've already seen. They can help us attach our equipment to allies when they enter. And Brunor Battlehammer, the first equip ability we activate each turn, only costs nothing if we want it to. So those are all great for us to help our stuff get equipped. Next up is ways to get around our opponent and their creatures. We have cards that give us evasion. We've seen all of these. So Vorak Battlehorns gives our commander and any of our allies, while our commander's in play, basically unblockable, plus trample. So trample and unblockable are, kind of redundant, but it makes it so the creature can't be blocked by more than one creature, which with Menace makes it unblockable, so that's good. Waterbender Ascension makes it actually unable to be blocked if we just target a creature and we Waterbend 4. Celestial Armor gives our equipped creature flying. Dalikos gives all of our equipped creatures flying and haste. Frostcliff Siege, we can give our creatures trample and haste if we choose Teamer. Glider Staff makes the equipped creature a flyer. Maul the Skyclaves does the same thing. It also gives them first strike and +2/+2. And Appa has a rally trigger whenever it or an ally we control enters. All of our creatures get +1/+1, flying and vigilance until end of turn. So great ways to be evasive. The next section is protection. Our protection section is 8 cards, starting with Dragonfire Blade. Very inexpensive to equip to our commander, but gives hexproof from monocolored, as well as +2/+2. Swiftfoot Boots gives hexproof to the equipped creature. Thran Power Suit gives ward 2 to the equipped creature. Aang can protect our creatures or us by airbending at flash speed another target creature or a spell. Celestial Armor, when it can be flashed in, it will snap onto a creature and give them hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Champion's Helm gives the equipped creature hexproof. Darksteel Plate gives that equipped creature indestructible. And finally, we have Hero of Gomafada, which is 4 and a white for a 4/3 human ally knight with a rally trigger. Whenever this creature or another ally we control enters, creatures we control gain indestructible until end of turn. Not just allies, but all of our shark creatures, shark tokens are indestructible. This is great because once this is in play, or when it enters play as well, but once it's in play, all we have to do is cast a non-creature spell. Our commander will trigger and make a token, which will trigger Hero of Gomafada because an ally's entered, and now all of our creatures are indestructible. This could be really helpful to us. So if it looks like a board wipe's coming, and we have the hero and our commander in play, we want to hold up a non-creature spell that we can cast on an opponent's turn, so that when they cast that board wipe, and it's not something like Farewell, hopefully, we can trigger our commander and thereby trigger the hero, so that we can give everything indestructible. Also, we might just want to hold up something like Aang Swift Savior, because that would trigger Hero of Gomafada as well, since Aang has Flash. We can do that on an opponent's turn. So yeah, that is our protection section. Let's take a look at our token generation. The Astrologian's Planisphere comes in with a hero token, which is a 1/1. It's a hero, doesn't do anything else, but that's a token we can use for some things. Horn of Valhalla makes a bunch of soldier tokens, that's not bad. Idol of Oblivion lets us draw a card every turn we've made a token, but also can make this 10/10 Eldrazi token. Renewed Solidarity gives us the ability to double our token generation every turn for ally tokens. We just have to wait till the end step. Sokka and Suki gives us a new white ally creature token every time one of our 21 equipment enter. Katara, goodness, they don't even look alike, brother and sister. Katara comes in and makes us one of those 1/1 allies, and Shark Typhoon makes us all these sharks when we cast non-creature spells or when we cycle Shark Typhoon itself. Our last section is a Typal section. We have a bunch of different ways to take advantage of these rally type triggers and the fact that we have so many cards that are allies. So Stoneforge Mystic, or Stoneforge Masterwork, we're not running the Mystic, gives the equipped creature a +1/+1 for each other creature that shares a creature type with it, which includes allies, of course, but it also includes humans for the non-ally humans we have in here if we put this on Sokka. South Pole Voyager gives us this rally trigger. Again, I've said it a couple of times, rally is a trigger, like it says on Hero of Gomafada. It's an ability word that means whenever this creature or another ally enters. So South Pole Voyager, whenever this or another ally enters, we're going to gain a life, and the second time each turn, we also draw a card. Renewed Solidarity gives all of the creatures of the chosen type, which of course for us will be allies, a +1/+1, +1/+0 rather. Sokka and Suki lets us make allies, but also have the rally trigger to attach our equipment to allies that enter. Tuk Tuk Scrapper has a rally trigger that blows up artifacts and then does damage equal to our number of allies to that artifact's controller. White Lotus Tile lets us tap for mana based on the greatest number of creatures we control with a type in common, which for us is going to be allies. Probably not going to be sharks. Hero of Gomafada, we've seen, lets all of our creatures become indestructible, even the non-allies. Kazula Warlord puts a 1/1 counter on all of our allies, not all of our creatures, but still pretty good. Marasa Pyromancer lets us do damage based on the number of allies we have to a creature we don't control. Or actually, we could do it one of our creatures. We don't want to, but to target creature. But it's a May ability. And of course, Appa gives all of our creatures +1/+1 flying and vigilance whenever it or another ally we control enters. So that covers our Typal section and finishes off all of our spells. As usual, we're going to look at our land base now. So we're running 18 basics. The deck is mostly white, and it's approximately the same amount of blue and red, but I wanted to keep these numbers a little bit closer than the exact perfect proportions might otherwise suggest, so that we're definitely able to get all three colors into play by turn 4 so that we can cast Sokka. And this balance is not a bad one. It works for us just fine. So 5 islands, 6 mountains, 7 plains. We're running 2 of the bicycle lands. These work basically the same. They are typed duals, which is to say a land that is both a mountain and a plains is Glittering Massif. It does come in tapped, but once you can tap it for red or for white because it's a mountain and a plains. In addition, we can cycle this when it's in our hand, so we can pay 2 and discard it to draw a card. So if we don't need land, maybe late game, we can turn this into a different card if we want to. But it does count toward our mountain and plains count if we care about that, which in a moment we'll see why we do. Irrigated farmland is the same idea, except rather than a mountain and plains, it's a plains and an island, so therefore taps for white or blue. We care about these types because we're running all 3 check lands. Check lands are dual lands that come in untapped if we control a land with a type, with one of these 2 types. So Clifftop Retreat will come in tapped unless we control a mountain or a plains. But that does include Glittering Massif, which is a mountain and a plains, or Irrigated Farmlands, which is a plains. So as long as we have one of those in play, Clifftop Retreat will come in untapped. It doesn't have to be a basic, because it doesn't say a basic mountain or basic plains. Clifftop Retreat makes red and white, Glacial Fortress makes white and blue, and therefore cares about plains and islands, and Sulphur Falls makes blue and red, which cares about, therefore, islands and mountains. We have 4 fixing lands. So Command Tower is a land that comes in untapped and taps for 1 mana of any color in our commander's color identity. So in this case, blue, white, or red. So it's the same as Arcane Signet in terms of its ability, but it's a land. So we definitely want to run this untapped tri-land. We're also willing to run Exotic Orchard, because if Command Tower is Arcane Signet, Exotic Orchard is Fellwar Stone. It comes in untapped and taps for 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. So everything I said about the Fellwar Stone, still relevant here, but it's on our land base, so it's pretty good for us. Path of Ancestry, on the other hand, is like a Command Tower that comes in tapped. It's a tapped land with the same text as Command Tower, but it also says that whenever we cast a creature spell with the mana from Path of Ancestry, we scry one. So we get a free scry whenever we use this to cast our commander, cast Katara, cast Angswift Savior, cast Marasa Pyromancer, any of our allies or humans, we'd be able to get that benefit here. Or warriors, technically, because Sokka's also a warrior. So yeah, a tap land that makes all 3 of our colors is totally worth running, and getting the little extra bonus of maybe being able to scry a couple of times during the game, that's not bad. Finally, we have Temple of the False God. This is a land I know not everyone runs, but I think that in a deck like this that is a little mana hungry, because we're not just casting spells, we're activating a lot of those artifacts to tap them, to equip them, or not tap them, but to equip them. Temple of the False God totally works for us. And it's also appropriate for the sort of power level of this deck. So this is a land that taps for 2 colorless mana, so it's a soul land, like a Soul Ring. We just can't activate it unless there are 4 other lands or more in play, so it needs 5 lands, but it counts itself. So this is not ideal if you have an opening hand with a Temple of the False God and a mountain and no other lands, probably mulligan that. But once you are able to get this online, and it's not hard to do so in a deck with 38 lands, it's 1 land drop that's giving you 2 mana, and that's worth running. Next up, we have 2 Tango lands. Prairie Stream is a typed dual. It's a plains and an island, so it taps for white or blue, and therefore can give any of your check lands the ability to come in untapped, because it's got those basic types. It also says it enters tapped unless we control 2 or more basic lands. So this actually does care about basics. But if we have a plains and a mountain in play, or 2 mountains, Prairie Stream will come in untapped because it'll see that. And that's pretty nice for us. So the ability to have this come in maybe untapped is pretty good. A way to upgrade this is maybe use Shocklands instead, like use a Hallowed Fountain for this. So it's going to have those same types, and it can also come in untapped even if we don't have those 2 basic lands. If you wanted to sort of side grade this, you could use a slow land like Deserted Beach is the white-blue one. That's a little bit of a side grade because it's likelier to come in untapped because it only requires there to be 2 or more other lands in play for it to come in untapped, but it doesn't have the basic types, so maybe this is still a little better. Prairie Stream is the white and blue version of this. Radiant Summit is the same thing, but is a mountain plains, and so it makes red or white. We're also running Mystic Monastery. This is our tapped tri-land. That's all we need to know. It comes in tapped, makes any of our colors. It's like a worse Path of Ancestry, which is just a worse Command Tower, and both of them are fine. You know, being able to have a land that completely fixes our mana, we're willing to have that come in tapped. But if you want to upgrade this, you could upgrade to a Rogren Triome, which is the same land, except with 2 other changes. It has the basic land types, so it's a island, mountain, plains, and you can cycle it for 3 generic mana, but it's a lot more money than 15 cents. So yeah, Mystic Monastery is pretty good for us. Finally, we're running 8 utility lands in this deck. So Abandoned Air Temple and Windbrisk Kites both can tap for white mana, which is why it's okay for us to only run 7 basic plains, even though we are predominantly a white deck, because these shore up our deficiency. Not that it's really that deficient, we're totally fine on our mana fixing. But anyway, Abandoned Air Temple is a land that comes in tapped unless we control a basic. And again, we've got 18 basics, so pretty likely. It can tap for white, or we can pay 3 and a white and tap it to put a 1/1 counter on each of our creatures. So another, what we've been calling Anthems for this deck. If we need a mana sink, and sometimes we do, Abandoned Air Temple is a great one for us to use. Ally Encampment is great. It comes in untapped, taps for colorless, or it taps for any color as long as we're willing to spend that mana on an ally. We don't have a whole lot of creatures in this deck comparatively, but being able to use this for mana of any color to get our commander out early is not bad. We can also pay 1, tap, and sack the encampment to bounce one of our allies to our hand, which is a good way for us to say, I would rather lose ally encampment and bounce Sokka than let Sokka die or be exiled and then have to pay for him to come back with commander attacks. So a little bit of a difficult choice. I feel like usually it's better to just pay the commander tax, but we have the option here if we need it, and this is helping fix us our mana a little bit in the process. It's pretty okay. Demolition Field is harkening back to what I said during Emergency Eject. I want to have one answer to problematic lands, but one is enough. So this is our way of doing that without upsetting the whole table by running land destruction. The way we do that is by having Demolition Field, which comes in untapped and taps for colorless, but we can also pay 2, tap, and sack it to destroy a non-basic land that an opponent controls, but they then get to search their library for a basic land and put it on the battlefield untapped. And so do we. So neither they nor we are down a land, and we both have a basic in play that's untapped that we can use right away, assuming we had basics left in our library. And we found a way to get rid of their Rogue's Passage in their Voltron deck, like we have, or their Glacial Chasm, if they're the kind of person that runs that. Something that would stop us from executing our game plan, or something that would really help them implement theirs. This is our answer for that. Fountain Port is here because we've got a lot of tokens in our deck. Fountain Port is a great utility land. It comes in untapped, taps for colorless. We can pay 2 and tap it and sack a token to draw a card. So we can turn our allies into tokens. Not bad. We can pay 3 and tap it and pay a life to make a 1/1 blue fish creature token. If we really want an extra token, and we've got some life and a lot of mana lying around, we can do that. But if we have 1 more mana lying around, it might even be better to pay 4 into the Fountain Port and tap it and make a treasure so we can bank that mana for the next turn. Jasmine Dragon Tea Shop is next. This is sort of a better ally encampment, even though it does something a little different. It comes in untapped, taps for colorless, or we can make 1 mana of any color to cast an ally spell or activate an ability of an ally source. I don't think we have any activated abilities on our allies that required colored mana, but a nice way to fix our mana for our allies in any case. And just like with Fountain Port, if we have extra mana lying around, we can pay 5 into this and tap it to make one of those allied creature tokens we've been talking about. We're running Rogue's Passage because it's a Voltron deck, or it's a deck with a big Voltron component. This comes in untapped and taps for colorless, or we can pay 4 and tap to make target creature unblockable this turn. So that can really help us swing in with Sokka, maybe with commander damage. But it doesn't say target creature you control, so we can also use this politically if we want to make a deal with an opponent by the same way we would with Duelist Heritage. If we say, hey look, opponent A, if you attack opponent B, I know you're worried about being blocked. I can use my Rogue's Passage to make your thing unblockable, but you need to attack first because I don't want to make your thing unblockable and then have you attack me with it. But if I give you this, you got to leave me alone for a turn, or you got to give me something of yours or whatever. And they might say, sure, that sounds great. And that helps you get rid of opponent B, but also set up opponent A for you to attack them next turn, because now one of their creatures is tapped since they attacked with it. Next is Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion. An untapped land that comes in and taps for colorless, or we can pay 2 a red and a white and tap it, so 5 taps, but it gives one of our creatures double strike until end of turn. This is a nice option for us. It's not maybe the best, because it does cost a lot compared to, paying 4 and making that creature unblockable. But if we really want to swing in, and double strike is very powerful. We might have the mana to do both, but we might have all the evasion we need with all of our creatures having menace, or all of our allies at least, especially our commander. So that double strike may be a good benefit to us. Finally, we have Windbrisk Heights. This is a hideaway land. It comes in tapped, and when it does, we look at the top 4 cards of our library, exile one of them face down under the Windbrisk Heights, and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So Windbrisk Heights, once it untaps, will tap for white, but if we have attacked with 3 or more creatures this turn, we can pay a white and tap Windbrisk Heights to play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. This is great. It lets us sneak a big spell into play for only the cost of essentially 2, since we're paying in 1 white and kind of another white by tapping Windbrisk Heights. So that can be really useful to us, especially when we can do this at instant speed. Maybe get a sudden, extra creature. It's not going to be a blocker, because this has to be on a turn where we attacked. But yeah, a nice little bit of card advantage for us hidden in our land base. And that about sums it up. Again, I'm releasing new Avatar Commander decks every Thursday through mid-January when Lorwyn Eclipsed drops, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a specific Avatar Commander or deck style. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure to like and subscribe, ring the bell if you want to be notified when I post any more of my videos. I'm putting out 2 Commander decks every week. And remember, Magic is fun. You should play more Magic.